Welcome into your session. I want to dabble in sequences that assist you in finding kind of an interesting type of ease. So we're going to be doing like little segments today, sequence in segments. We'll play with it and see what helps you release the most. Okay, so I want you to just simply start sitting on a bolster. So you're going to sit up on the bolster. You can sit either in a cross-legged position, you can extend your legs in front, right? If this feels comfortable. I find when I fold at my knees, from my hip to my knee to my ankle, even though this might be an elevated knee position for you, when I fold, I find a little easier on my back muscles. But if this is difficult for your back, just take a block under each thigh, right? So you might not even think, oh, it's difficult now, but a few seconds in, it might feel a little tightening in the back. So I want us to begin with some basic motions to stretch out and ease the neck and the shoulders and the spine, and then we'll go into our expansive respiratory opener. Okay, so start just seated cross-legged, any leg forward that you would like, and just let the shoulders roll back. Maybe let your eyes settle back and down. And that could be an interesting thought of how do you settle your vision in your practice, especially when sitting. So just roll the shoulders, lifting and shrugging and rolling. So shroll, up, back, and around. So simple. So warming up into that upper bone structure of the arm, and it weaves into the chest, and then let the shoulders center down and just tipping your head over to your right side. So as you feel your head tip, you can stretch out through the neck gently. Keep the sternum with that nice lift. Feel an openness. It's a little different than when we move onto our back. So just noticing what opens up, what kind of just as a little bit of a door opens. And then when you bring your head back center, in breath, ribs expand. And then as you out breath, let your head tilt over to your left side. Just shift your head tilting. Noticing the weight of your head, the curious circulation with actually all these parts in the top of you that have to mobilize, although it feels like one bowling ball, right? Even though there's face, jaw, places that can get pretty tense. Come back center. And then I want you just to twist to your right. So just bring that left hand to that right knee, rotate. You can always change the crossing of the legs. So feeling where, oh, where in the ribs am I moving? If I'm moving at all. Come back center, shrug the shoulders up. Breathe, exhale down. And then twisting towards your left. So you're going to reach with the right hand to that left knee and just find that rotation. The back arm could wrap around your torso, but you want to find when you turn that rotation. And I like to think of it as just simply a yes, I'm turning. What's turning is, a discussion in my body, right? Is it my head doing the movement? So I always find it interesting to talk to people about turn or stretch your neck, and they might just turn their shoulder. So you want to turn it all. Okay, now when you come back center, take the blocks out, and let's lower back into cobbler's pose. So I want you to sit down in front of your bolster. Now you'll get a belt, you'll connect it, and first things first, right in front of the bolster, that's a horizontal, right across my practice space. And then I want to add blocks at either the second setting, okay, they can shift in. There may be an opportunity to go a little lower with the blocks, but start because we have our hips down today, not on a block. Okay, now taking the belt, so you got a big loop, be generous with it. You never know how big a loop you need for this one. And well, magically that worked out. I've got the belt, the end of it. I want to be able to pull that towards me, not have it go this way. So when I scoop up my feet, I've got to bring the belt to the inside of the legs. Even though you've done this a zillion times, there's always a time when someone gets confused and like doesn't know where to push the belt through, but it goes the inside line of the legs. Then I move the belt down, and see, I didn't even have a long enough. My belt needs to get a little bit bigger here, bigger loop. So I'm going to slide the buckle up to the hip, and then I'm going to place the belt so it's just around the eyebrows of the buttocks. If you were to kind of pull the belt, like if you're going to wrap it around your lower zone right below sacrum, it kind of feels snug, like a little, like a bucket, right? It is kind of like that. Like, I don't think of the pelvis as a bucket, but I guess it could be a bucket. It's a bowl. So I'm going to lean back, and I'm going to be a little careful here as I guide back. Okay, I'm tipping the blocks. I can reset them in a few moments, but I'm going to use my arms. If you've got arms here, use them to guide you into this arch. And then as you go back, you want your blanket to be high enough. And if it feels like, oh, it's just too much of a back bend for you in the beginning, what you can do for certain is to make the blanket stack a little higher. You could fold that top blanket up one more and just let the bones settle into this organized expansion, right? It's like we're organizing, our organs, we're organizing this layer of elongation, spaciousness for this precious part, right? Organs, heart, lung force. So if this just feels too much, there is a modification, right? If you decide, okay, I need something, it's just too intense, you can always carefully come out of this and then turn your bolster lengthwise on the spine. So you have a ramp for your whole spine, like we've done many times. Okay, you can refer to that. But I find if I can work with this, get my sand, try to get the chest to do the opening to help my back, right? So I have found with a good practice of chest openers, most people find that a more friendly term than back bends as we get older, helps my back a ton. So just to feel that stretching open of these tight areas, the breathing muscles, have the sand across if you're going to use it at all. Open out the arms. And then as you start to feel the movement of your breath, it might be challenging with this deep of a back bend, right? Because we're used to having the tail area with a bolster. So again, if you need to switch it around, if it's too much, adding a block under the back of the pelvis would be okay, but then you'll lose the block under the leg, right? So there's other things you could do, like add a blanket under your tailbone, that kind of thing. But if you can work towards opening the ribs, really expand out. Okay, like you're trying to create these wings in the front as much as the back. Let your eyes rest back. And then just come into the first real restorative here. Okay, if the knees are higher, it's easier on the back as well. So if you decide, I want to try this with the bolster like this, but I'm still trying to get some peace of sensation, peaceful sensation, you can always just slide the blocks out, have the knees pointing up, scoot the feet in towards your seat, and be with the chest opener without this whole belt situation, right? Another idea. So steady that length of the in and out breath. Relax your chest, your heart. Now, as you feel the coordination of your feet together, the knees resting open. Yeah, what that has focus on here is our hip, right? When our knees are out this direction, we're beginning some basic hip circulation. Let's just call it that. So kind of invitation to supporting our hip, the frame of support in our pelvis. So let's just loosen up that belt. So if you can unbuckle, okay, carefully, you might already feel like the belt is helpful, right, for security for the pelvis, but let's just slide the belt. If you can stay reclining, that would be ideal versus trying to get up and down yet. And I'm going to move the knees to point up. So as you guide the knees pointing up, and now feel what the difference is here in your back. Like I feel the difference immediately in my sacroiliac area. You can kind of feel like, oh, yeah, maybe when the knees go out, it has a little different kind of toning in the SI area. The knees point up, it might feel like a solid, like a really easy back bend now, right? A little bit easier. So take a few more moans here. Walk the feet in towards your seat. Don't overdo it with the knees, right? You don't have to push the heels towards the rear, but just walk them in. You can let the knees move a little side to side, kind of windshield wiper. So the pelvis starts to get some motion. And then we'll stretch our arms back overhead, reaching behind you, interlace your fingers perhaps, turn the hands inside out, extending. And then as you release that clasp, you're going to move your sand off to the side. Okay. Now, we're going to come around to the side. Any side is going to do. I would say just take it easy when you get out for the bolster. So slide your blocks off to the side. You're going to just use the rib motion, right, to take the roll. We usually do our roll from our hips sometimes, but move on the bolster. Use the bolster to give you some sensory feedback in your ribs. Okay. And then as you push the bolster aside, oh no, we're going to lose it for a little bit. We're going to come back on down to our back with just one blanket under your head. Lower carefully, knees to chest. And then take a ball. So you want to have a therapy ball, something that's large enough that it will feel like a kind of a comforting glide on the sacrum. Okay. So it's okay to keep the knees in for a few moments, right? You don't have to speed up to the next part of the segment here. But get a feel here when your knees draw in, it's what is doing this, right? It's a compilation of things. You don't have to analyze it, but there's a compilation of actions, right, to bring the knees in until the belly kind of relaxes. So lower the feet and then separate and lift up the hips and then roll the ball under the base of the spine. Okay, so I like to think on tailbone with the ball. And then when I lower my body weight on the ball, okay, then I get a little bit off balance. So that's what I want you to do, is be off balance. Step the feet out a little bit, just out. The feet can be parallel, they could be turned in a slight bit, but you're going to move your hips side to side just to get some circulation into the base of the back, right? The very base towards the glutes. Get familiar with weight on the ball and movement. Okay, now arms could be anywhere. They could be resting on your ribs. They could be down by the hips. Okay, now feel the center, right smack dab in the middle. Okay, I want you to keep the left foot so it's a little straight out to the side, meaning you're not going to push the knees together. You're going to have a pretty good stance, like, wide stance, and then lift the right thigh up, cross the right ankle to the left knee, okay? Then start to make your move to balance. So door number one would be figure four like this, okay? And it's a little bit off balance with the ball because you got one foot up and turned out, one knee turned out. So then try to move the left foot off the floor and bring the knees towards the chest and possibly hug the back of the left thigh towards you. So you could scoop in, thread the needle, right? Right hand scoops in, almost falling off the ball here. And then using this focus here into my core, right? I know it's a bit of a core exercise to use the ball in figure four, but if you think, well, maybe if the ball was higher, you can always try, okay? If you want to move it up a little bit for balance, okay? And it might even send you off balance, but it's nice to have a blanket under your head. Somehow that feels like it helps my balance. Otherwise, my head's going to roll around. I think of all the parts that you have an opportunity to work on your balance. There's lots of them. You don't need to get too many balancing props, right? All you need is a ball. So as you draw the knees in, or you have your left foot on the floor, right? These are both good, okay? Why would this be good, right? This is accessing my inner leg, my groin, leg pit. This is a good one. I like them both. Okay. Now when you switch sides, you choose, are you going to stay up, kind of upside down to switch sides? Or are you going to lower your foot? Now I'm just going to try taking my legs up. So a little bit of Viparita Karani, yep. A little balance. And then as I lower down my right foot, I don't have to bring it all the way to the floor, but it might be intelligent so I can assign the same amount of alignment standards. So if I lower down my feet, right foot pushes, left ankle crosses to right knee, left knee is stretching out, or is it? But it's the hip stretching. So one side you might really observe well. This side kind of flings a different way. It might be like a different hip awareness. You can kind of go back and forth between sides if you want to kind of analyze or just go into the second side. So I've got the hands reaching the back of the right thigh. And as I guide my legs in, the spine is the back. What is stretching in the back? Like it's the lower back material that was just arching so much with the bolster. So it's nice to soothe and ease after working that area. So breathing, maybe relaxing your eyes. Really let this be a time for influencing awareness, self-care. So important. Okay, now when you get that feel of the circulation in the hip, right? You might feel it better with your right foot on the floor because this is a little easier to balance for me. You might go back to that before we come out to this one. But what we're going to do is a counter twist. So I want you to be a little careful with how you come off the ball. So I'd say you can just move your hips side to side like you're wagging your tail because the ball is closest to the tail zone. Okay, and then you're going to press down, and you could uncross bring the left foot down if you want to make it very clean move for your back. Probably best to be safe. Foot comes down, and then I just have to use my hips to lift up and then take the ball out, and we'll go back to that left leg over though. So here's what you'll do is you'll have your ball to that upper outer left thigh. You're going to take that left leg, cross it over the right, and then let the knees shift to the left side. Okay, so I got left leg over right leg. It does feel kind of pretzelish, doesn't it? So it's the crossover that's the deepest that you can do. And then the ball, it could be a block if you find the ball is just too low for you. You might need something a little bit higher. But the block to me kind of jabs into me, kind of pushes into your skin in a not so friendly way. But you can kind of work with that. You can make it lower, you can contour it. But let that right side band, right down to the IT band, sense that extension. Could be pretty slight. If I use the ball, it's not going to be as intense. If I kind of move the ball down the side of the leg, a little lower, then I get more stretch. But I've got to kind of weigh it with the sensation in my joints. So if you feel like it's really upsetting in the knee, then don't go that far down, even if it's just a wave of sensation that is you're unsure about. Should have a sensation meter. Okay. So with the groins kind of gripping in, right, pelvic floor, relaxing at the base of the pelvic floor. See if you can soften, not try to grip, use the leg grip to strengthen. And then bring the knees back center, uncross, left leg, cross the right leg over the left, take the ball over to the right side. And you're going to find you don't have to have the exact location to start. You're going to let the knees lean to the right and then position the ball to where you feel like it, kind of absorbs the tension. They're really great responsive props, right? They respond to you when you push into them. They're always ready for where you're at, I would say. It changes with your ability to let go in the moment, how much you're going to lean to the right. Your arms could be stretching open. You really are isolating in this left side leg, so you can always just let your hands rest on your torso too. And emphasize that breathing. You're feeling if you can loosen up the movement of the breath in the body, so using it as a stretching tool inside. Now, instead of trying to push the edge of the stretch or go past, or leverage it, I want you to be cautious here how much you're forcing. So just feeling what the natural range of motion is for you. Not trying to go to end range is what I mean. Meaning getting rid of the ball or the block. Okay, last moment here on this one, you're going to bring the knees back center and then placing the ball center of the knees, feet down, lift the hips up into bridge. I always like the cue of when I lift and lower, I have my hands at the top of the thighs. So the heel of my hand is right in the hinge. So when I lift up my hips, I'm just guiding the thighs evenly. If you feel like they're going to comply with the instruction without being touched, that's okay. You can have your hands on the floor. And then as you lift and lower through drawbridge, just feel when you can squeeze the ball, right? Noticing when you lift up the hips, if that's a good moment to squeeze in. That's what I believe. But you might find maybe the opposite works well for your back. Okay? Or just lightly hold on to it. But take a few more moments and we're going to coordinate the lift of the hips. Okay? Now add a block, just one. Okay, low setting is great. Second setting is probably what some of you are going to want to go for. But, look at this. Like I can't, or feel where you're at. You don't have to look at this. But when I lift up, the block low is actually what I can do, right? With reason, with the ball, the center of the knees. It's kind of tricky. If you didn't have the ball, I bet you could go a little higher, but don't get too radical, right? Just find what is in reason in your constitution here, right? When in the hips, in the degree of movement in the muscles. Okay, feel the hinge at the hips. And then I want you to lift up using all that lower core band to bring the feet off the ground. All right, and then when the legs squeeze into that ball, you're going to slowly lift up the feet. Okay. All right, before the ball drops. It's that kind of day, I guess, huh? All right, so when I lift, I'm going to remove the ball and then try to lengthen out the back of the legs. This is tricky. I find the back of my legs it's not the same as when we do legs up the wall exactly. So we'll do that at the end, but I want you to get a feel of how can you lengthen here without any prop pulling your feet, a wall behind you. You're using, you're really going against gravity with it, right? So then use that force of that lymph drain and just refresh the legs and the feet here. Take a few moments. If you want to get a little higher on the block, careful, right? You want to lower your feet first at the balls of the feet, heels up, lift the hips and move the block a little higher. And you might find, oh, that even feels better in my back. If you've done this for a while, likely you're going to start to need, you definitely need some more height at times, right? Your tolerance is changing, right, with the props. So feel the angle of hips, of the torso. This is what's important. That creates a back bend. This is a back bending pose. I was surprised. I remember when I was like, it is a back bending pose. It is clearly a back bending pose and an inversion in one. Okay, I got my arms out into goalpost. I'm going to take a few moments to just let the legs kind of refresh. And with that focus of inhale, just give it a try. It's a little dose of your day. Give it a try. Okay. Now the feet might get a little tingly. Okay, we're going to be pushing a little weight into the feet soon. So take the last few moments of not stepping on the feet. They're not going to get stepped on right now. And you could do a little circling with the feet, no sand on them. Go all the directions you can make up. And then when you get a feel of what direction do you prefer, go in with the feet, turn them in, or turn them out and around. Okay, before we get into the calves and so forth, this is good to just find that fluid flows back. That lymphatic pump is happening now because we're upside down. Lymph drain. Okay, now as we feel that spine doing all things, right? There's a little arch, there's a little flex. Okay, now as you bend through the legs, I find this is mostly a core exercise to go legs upside down. So you're going to lower down with the feet because that's required, huh? So as you place the trust in the balls of the feet, like you never did before, you're going to lift up the hips, kind of visualize this, the thigh land, the thigh lids try to lift and open up. Okay, now I'm going to slide the block out. Don't need it. Lower the spine. Yeah, go slow. It's your spine. Go slow. You have to slow it down. And then as we get ready to come up, I want you to hug the legs in, hug the back of the thigh so it's knee friendly. Rock a little side to side. Feel where you rock on the back. Is it close to the tailbone that you tend to rock on, or is it a little higher up? I find this kind of interesting. These little gentle things we do are intriguing now. Okay. Now that's the zone that you're touching with the floor is pushing into that we're going to try to move next with our breath and with our ability to coordinate. So just roll to a side and then come around and slide your blanket to the center of your space. And I want you to have the blanket under your knee. So if you have a wall space behind you, or if you need to reorient yourself to a wall space, it would be great. Not required. You can do this without a wall. But the wall gives you some feedback, I think, or some feedback. Okay, so my knees don't have to be this high of a blanket. You could always have, like, some people use like a towel. They don't like this much bulk. I do think it affects your hip a little bit, how bulky this is under your knees. So you play with it. Lower blanket, higher blanket, hands underneath the shoulders. Okay, so with your feet pushing into the wall, you're going to let your spine motion rounding, chin towards chest, arching, chest forward, tail back, cat-cow. So feel the movement that is oh so familiar for you, coordinating. That coordination of spine and chest, right? Okay, last moment here. We're just going to reach the hips back. I want you to walk the hands forward. Now, as you extend in the arms, this is all up to you if you want to add anything to the hands. So if you decide, well, Maybe if the floor was higher, it would feel a better stretch. So what I recommend is to try blocks sometimes. The bolster is what we've done before many a time, but the blocks are nice, and it's just different, you know. So if I stretch back, makes it a little easier, doesn't it? It's just different motion. And then try to use the blocks to help your wrists. So when you come forward, you want them right across from each other in up dog. Let the feet push the wall. If you're too close to the wall, you might have to come away from it, but lift up through your chest. I don't know. I think the blocks are amazing, difference for me than the hands on the floor. You can try both. So either the blocks under your hands, alternate up dog. Okay, and kind of feel how the pelvis reacts. When you go back, you're actually trying to reach and stretch your hips a little bit, aren't you? Okay, it's a basic hip stretch. Then when you come forward, it does feel like it brings concentration in a different way to the hip flexors and glutes. I think it's quite interesting when I move this direction. Now, next time you come back to table, okay, we're just simply going to stretch back and up into downward dog. Now, blocks are an option. If you're on a mat that's a little slippery, I don't recommend blocks, okay, because guess what will happen? But if you want to give it a try, you can lift up the knees. Heels are going to be a little bit up at the wall, okay? I'm a huge fan of blocks because I'm short, and then it makes me feel a little bit longer in my core. But another way you could do this, let's say you go, I like this, but I feel slipping. You can always do this with the blocks at the wall. Because if you're kind of excited about this idea and you're like, how can I do this when it doesn't slip? You can always put the blocks at the wall and stretch back this way, right? It should be easier on your wrists. That's all I'm trying to get our emphasis. So if you want to go back and forth, like you're learning how to crawl again, go for it. Why not? Make the class a little different, but we are going to lunge. So I want you to kick the wall with your lunge. So next few moments, we're going to get ourselves organized to step a foot forward between the blocks, or if it's just your hands, get those blocks all the way up, as high as they'll go. And then I like to keep my heel touching into the wall. I really enjoy that feel of the heel touching. So if I decide, okay, I'm ready to get a little height here, I can bring my hands back up to my hip and to my other hip, and I use the wall for balance, right? Now you don't have to do this. You could decide to stay down on your blocks and work from here. It's all up to you. Okay, it should be up to you in your practice. I mean, this is an outline of things we do, and there's no pose police, so you get to decide. But it might give you some good feedback if you come up, because we're going to do our sage series pretty soon, the side sage, which we all love. But so we're going to work our muscles before we get into that, so it might even feel better. So if you come up, then step the left foot now to the right foot. I want us to take our feet to a little wider than hips distance now, using your blocks if that helps you. And then carefully, or rapidly, whatever you want it to be, get your belt. And I want you to have the belt behind you, holding it with both hands, because how else are you going to get it there? And you're going to move the belt over the back, holding, feeling that stretch through the shoulders, the chest. So good. Yeah, and the wider the reach is on the belt, might feel more comfortable, but then you kind of slip into a lot of rounding. So you might take your hands a little closer in on the belt in a few moments. So you can feel the hands in a fist right to your back area here, kind of at the kidney area. And then as the arms stretch back and then overhead. Does that make sense? So what I find interesting is I like to get my hands out wide on the belt personally. I feel like, okay, now I can do this. But then if I go too far out, then my shoulder, everything rolls in a lot. So if I have my belt behind me, my palms face forward, this is key when you hold your belt. And you can also, let's say you don't like doing that and your wrists are just really upset about it. you can buckle it up, okay, and have it at your wrists, right? Well, that was good. I snapped my skin in that one. Okay, it happens to me frequently. All right, so I have my hands, you see I can make a little loop, and this is nice, and it's really easy on the wrists, right? So that's an excellent thing to do. So feel the arms stretching. It's a little different than holding it, actually. It's a little different in my shoulders. Okay, then come out with that belt, move it aside, and I want you to take that forward fold just for a moment, hands on the blocks, and then feeling your knees bending a little bit more. Be careful, your blood pressure's dropped significantly, and it changes, yeah, as if you're at, well, you're all getting older, but how that feeling is coming in and out of stretches is, it can really knock you out. So you want to go slow. So when you bend the knees, stretch your arms forward, push down into your feet, and then just come on up, slow, push into your feet, lift up at the chest, breathe. You can't see this upper part. I'm just reaching my arms up and back, thumbs reaching back. Let the arms sweep out. Close your eyes, let your arms dangle down by the sides. And then just feeling that posture of change in your back. Feel as if you could stand and still lift your rib cage. How is that going to happen? Is it going to be just pushing my chest up, or it's going to be breathing wide in my ribs? That's how I'm going to do it. Kind of expansion. And then hands at the hips. And then just carefully tilt forward. You're going to take a lunge again. So you'll reach your hands down to your blocks, slide them in beside your feet. Step the right foot back. Reach that right heel to the wall. And then as the left knee keeps that motion forward, we're just doing simple lunges. Nothing especially creative here, but probably for the bones, a good direction. Just simple, easy does it. I got my lunge going. Maybe I'm going to push back into the wall. Hopefully the wall will hold me up and I won't push into it. Okay. And then when I come up, hands on that left thigh and come on up. Floyd, I can't forget that time in the studio when we did push through the wall. You remember that? Yeah, we actually put a hole in the wall. Well, just by gently pushing into it. Was it with the tennis ball or something? Oh my gosh. How funny. Okay, so if you're not up here, which is fine, you don't have to be completely in this higher lunge, but I like this. I wouldn't say I love this feeling, but I like this connection into my hip right now. The right heel stretching back. Ooh, I can't even believe I can balance. So when I lean forward, so much strength in the legs here. Okay, now when we lower down, so good, lower the back knee, thank goodness. Now you can do a little bit of that quad flush, but let's do the quad flush with the bolster. So as we shift back carefully, all that heat into the legs is wonderful. Come back with the left knee. Then taking your blocks to the side and grasp onto your bolster. And I suppose you could set this up. I would do something like I have the bolster just lengthwise, and I just lower down on top of the bolster with my front spaces. And then as I lower down my elbows on the blanket, this works pretty good. This way I'm not sinking too much into my arms. My feet are touching the wall, which I like to have a little connection. Not too much, not too little. And I want you to press back into your feet and then see if you can do a little bit of tummy time. So my legs are kind of awake. I'm pushing into my feet. My arms are going to stretch down so the hands touch the ground to help my back muscles. So think on spanning the hand, fingers stretch open, elbows kind of swing out like you're airing out your armpits a bit here. And then as the elbows move back, just straight back, a little hinge like your wing, and then you'll push to come up and let your knees relax on the ground or the blanket. Breathe. You really feel into that length in the front body. Perfect. And now as you lower down, baby back bends are key, right? This is probably your best back care you can do right here. It's just this. So if you're just really tired with it, you can always slide the blanket forward and put your elbows down to what we call Sphinx pose. I like this one a lot. This is a way I try in the evening to like read. I try, instead of sitting and rounding my head forward, of course my head's looking down anyway right now, but I try to use a bolster like this. I keep it just like this. I usually don't have a blanket under my knees for it, but then I like this, and then it helps out my back. It's so good. This way I can do my tummy time and relax my knees, my feet, that kind of thing, and then just work on that, preserving my ability to strengthen my back just by using my bolster. Bolsters are wonderful. They'll just lie onto, okay? Or lean on. Okay, slide the hands back. Okay, because we're gonna go to side sage, if you got your blanket back there, you might just pull it in so it's closer. And then come up, come back to table. Do a little wiggling in the back, little wiggle back. So that might be move your hips side to side, might be cat cow. Just feeling the back length. So I like to kind of try to get the stretch in my torso, stretch it apart with my shoulder and my hip. Okay, now turn your bolster across the mat. And if you like to do side sage with a blanket under your hip, this is the day for it. Okay. We don't normally have the blankets both back here behind us under our head, but sometimes I like this for my hip. It just feels softer. So if you don't like it, it's not enough of a side stretch, then get rid of the blanket under your leg and put it behind you with the other blanket, because it will make the stretch maybe a little less, but a little softer, okay? So option is to come down to that left hip. You're going to take your blocks behind the blanket, back overhead. I'm going to stack them up. So one is low and one is high. And then I'm going to make this blanket a little higher because I only have one that I've folded up. And if you have a round bolster, by the way, I sometimes just always forget about this, but if you have one nearby, you can put that here instead. Some of you, I think, do. Okay, so I'm gonna add my ball on the inside of my right leg. Could be knee, it could be thigh. And then as I add my sand, I love to use the sand here on the hip, okay? The only thing I admittedly do feel, though, is I have to be careful how far my knee goes back, because once the sand goes on, I can feel that traction in the inside of my, right, that inner ligament. It feels a little bit of a drag on it. So I don't want to push my thigh too far back unless I can kind of coordinate this hip flexor stretch. So part of that is just letting your body find some peace in the pose. Right? It doesn't happen instantly or within 30 seconds. It takes a little time to have your physiology kind of respond to the pose. Okay, so you can use one block, 2 blocks. It seems a little too high for me today because I have a blanket under my hip probably. So I might go down to a low block, I guess. 1 block on the second or third setting. Okay, do you have to use a block? No. I see some people, they roll on the back of their head and they just like this stretch in the chest. And they stay with this type of position. However, it feels okay for the joints, right? So if your knee is responding, you need to back off on how far the knee goes back. If your neck is upset, you might roll on the back of your head. So feeling that side body reaching, that length in the ribs, expanding in the rib chamber. Relax the face and receive. As you start to spiral back down to the left shoulder a little deeper. If you have a sandbag on, I would shift it off and see if you can take a direction of twisting, but not commit to line into the twist because we're going to come up and take rotation. So some of us twists have interesting challenges abroad, right? Higher up and shoulders. So see if you can let this be about the midsection. So when I turn to the left, I just rotate, bring my hands to press down, feel the twist through the torso. Okay, so you're going left with the twist on the left hip. Okay, and let's come up and try it. So we're going to move the ball aside, and we're going to just take a seat on the bolster. I'm going to see how it goes with this blanket. I'm not sure this is going to be a good idea. It's not a good alignment idea. So no blanket under your feet. Bad idea. Yeah, you want your leg to have as much drop as you can. Just had to check it out. So since we were turning left, okay, we're going to have the left foot to the right thigh. Now, I would say a ball under the knee or a block, either one is pretty good. And some people probably prefer a block because it's not going to be bouncy. But I like how the ball kind of responds. That's my preference. So your knee doesn't have to be in as deep of a squeeze, right? Meaning this is pulling the top of my knee, right? So I could loosen it up and take my foot forward. For me, this is more challenging on my joint. It just doesn't feel as good. So it's up to you. Some people are better with the foot forward. Okay. So we add a sandbag if we have one on the left thigh. My right leg is trying to stretch out to about, kind of like to 2 o'clock. I wouldn't say go to 1, right? See if you can go towards somewhere between 1 and 2 o'clock with the right leg. And if it's really stiff, like it just doesn't want to go, just put a block under it. It usually holds it in position. So if I put a block above the back of my right knee, it's like, yeah, my leg's going to stay. It's not going to go anywhere now. I love that. Okay. So I center. Now my legs are in these different rays of reaching. So that's going to help support my pelvis and my hip stretch. So when you turn left, you're not touching the wall with your arm on this one today. You're just reaching your right hand for the left knee. If you happen to have a blanket back here, it's kind of a gift. So I can touch down to the blanket and I can rotate. And hey, I've challenged right with my in-breath to help me lift up sometimes. So just visualize that, like in-breath, lift up, out-breath, rotate. All the while, the leg span is important, right? Having my right leg stretching out is key. Otherwise, my pelvis, my inner right thigh does not get any range of motion. Okay, now let the left arm stretch up. Okay, right arm to that right leg, of course. And so I'm just going to lean into my right leg. I'm not going to push my knee at all. I'm above the knee with my right arm. If this is difficult, what I would recommend is to use a block. If you can get another block, you put it besides the right leg at the highest setting, and then you would put your hand on that block when you lean in. Okay, of course, we've used belts for this before, but it's nice just to kind of visit where your range of motion is right here with basic supported props under you. Okay, because these are all bringing you up, right? The props under you help you rise up. Okay, now feeling where that stretches that left hip. Now when you come on up, center spine up to crown of the head up. take a block forward. I'm going to show the basic version here and then the more challenging one. So basic 101 would be my right foot on the block, okay? Sole of the foot down, right? And then I would take the final turn to the right. Shoulder back, left hand holds the right knee. This is wonderful, right? For my back, how it represents lift in the spine. Now, if you decide I'm going to go a little further, you could take that right leg, cross it over the left, get rid of the ball or block under the knee, and then bring the left arm to that right leg, and then rotate. I don't know. When I think about kind of the back lift, this is pretty good for me. Yeah, it's kind of funny how you get this mentality of that this is the actual pose. The success is here, you know, but I find what's going to feel good is if your back is lifting. It doesn't matter how it looks, right? You're trying to do self support here. Take another couple moments with the motion to the right. And then when you come back forward, let your right foot come away from the left leg if it was hooked there. And then when you come out, just slide the sand to the right side and bring your feet together, soles of the feet, and the knees splay out. Let the hands reach down to the ankle bones. Feel where there's this, it's kind of intriguing how there's both arch, there's both a feeling of kind of round and flex. So just use this as a moment to connect to your inner leg here. You could reach for the inner leg, kind of pushing into the calves with your thumbs. Okay, you got one thumb per calf. Okay. All right, now let's go to side stage on the second side. So down off the bolster. Again, last time I had the blanket here, so I ought to do that again. Otherwise, I'm not complying with the alignment here. Okay, so I'm going to add that back. I like the cushion. So I place my right hip down. I've got my blocks. I guess I only used one last time, so I'll see how that goes. So ball on the inside of the right knee. Sand up. Okay. If you feel like this blanket add-on is making the stretch less, doesn't feel as, I guess, intense supply of pressure and stretch, that's okay sometimes, right? You're following the circulation of the pose. It doesn't need to feel more, right? So you just follow the direction. We have the arm overhead touching. You could reach the block back if you like, but just feel where the weight is on that right hip. And breathe. Let the weight of your head relax. That's key. So again, that might be for you that you let your left arm open and you also let your head roll a bit, not just the chest and the arm. Yeah, I'll admit my right thigh is not entirely touching my bolster, which it ought to. So I want to find that I don't get give too much slack in my right thigh when it slides down. So I want to feel it connected close right next to the bolster. And then you can kind of feel these gaps of sensation, right? The levers, the lower levers, the waist. It's not like a lever per se, but it connects and it is deeply affected by your leg moving back, this torso stretch. It's wonderful to have a leg, right, to help you stretch out the torso. So have a moment of gratitude that this leg is operating and it's moving a little back and the torso can stretch. Excellent work. Take a few more breaths here. Okay, now as you move the sand off the hip. Okay, now keep in mind, we're going to be repeating some of the stuff when we sit, some direction. So caution in this whole sacrum, low spine, back hip zone. You want to be careful. So the left knee is going to go to the right, kind of like in a fetal position, right? And then I want to be aware of my ribs doing movement. And this is tricky. I mean, we definitely move around a bit with our levers pulling us around. So see if you can get a big breath, right? Ribs expand. And then as I roll to the right, I want to feel the ribs on the bolster. And then preserve your ability to rotate, turn, just have your hands on the ground like you're trying to figure out how you're going to get up off the ground kind of moment. But this is about preserving that ability, again, to rotate in the rib space. Okay. Now, my knees aren't touching right now. One knee's a little back, but I could try to bring them together. But for me, that feels just not good. So I'm going to keep it a little bit apart. Okay. Now, when you come on up, you're going to carefully come up and sit on the bolster. Okay. If you got a blankie here, move it away. Right foot in, left leg out. Simple. We are simple. We're simplists here. So we're simplarians. I'm a papertarian, Ivy's decided, because I like using paper. So you're going to take the ball to the right leg. Yes, that's right. So if you have the block under the thigh, I don't know, I really like that. Otherwise, this hip doesn't seem as supported. So up to you. All up to you. If you don't want to block under your left leg, don't worry about it. Okay. I'm going to use all the blocks, I think. I only got a couple here. So I'm going to have a ball under the right knee for me. I suppose if you weren't using this other block, you could put the block there. I know some people that do. I haven't mentioned this before, but they'll use a block and a ball. If the hip is really tight and your knee's this high up, you can use a block underneath the ball. It's actually quite nice to support that. And the sandbag should help you a lot. If you have sand on the thigh, it's going to ground the leg, right? Turn to the right. Whew. Now you've gone from side body lengthening, right? Now you're rotating, right? It seemed like we were getting there, right, with our side sage, but now we're getting into it. So we turn, we breathe, we feel the rib cage in motion. And how is that going for you? Are you leaning back? That could be part of it. So just learning how to sit up with age, right? Like the back gets tired, right? Things get a little sluggish. So work with breathing slow, filling up the body, and then feeling that lift in the body when you breathe in. As you exhale, let the body twist. And that's when you want to twist, is on the out breath. And now, if most of the grounding work is in the right leg, because I'm holding it, I'm sitting into it, now let's try to lean to the left. So we're going to reach the left hand down. It could reach, you can have your elbow just touch to the left thigh. The right arm swings up. Go slow. You don't have to go quick, right? You don't want to go too fast with this. So I like a block. I just like a block to support my arm. And then when I lift, I can still keep this rib section moving up and turning, right? So you could even get a hold of your rib barrel and, you know, at the web space here, this could hold, turn, stretch. It's kind of nice. So lean down to that elbow. Let the right arm stretch over to the left side and breathe. Okay. I feel this in my right, kind of the attachment at the top of the thigh, that weave into my hip, into the adductor. It's kind of nice. But you don't have to overdo it here. So just let the arm lift as much as it's just comfortable with breath. Just a few more moments here. Okay, now when you come on out, you're gonna bring the left foot forward on a block for some of us. Some of us went all the way to the twist, right? Some of you are gonna find that this block idea and turning is not what you wanna go with. I sure like it, okay? But if you wanna go a little deeper, you can cross the left leg over the right, sandbag on the right thigh, hook the arm to the left leg and turn. But stay with the emphasis that your seat, like you almost want to visualize like you have the biggest seat, like your sitting bones are really far out. You're not trying to squish things together. It's like, think big, feel big at your pelvis, right? Otherwise, you're just gonna grip up too much. So finding a way to reach with the arm, lift with the heart, rotate to the left. Now, there's always further to go, isn't there, on these twists? There's always more to do with the organs. So the organs will feel kind of blessed, right, with the circulation. So massaging into the digestive tract, into many things. Breathe. Now release the pressure. Come back center. Take the sand off. Okay, you're enough space away from your wall space. I want us to come back. So we're going to go upside down. So have a blanket under your head, just one. Uncross the legs, okay? Now, this might be a nice way to emphasize the easing our back. So I'm on bolster, but I'm gonna sit right to the center edge. I'm not gonna drop to the floor with my rear. But you can tell like just this, I mean, this is like a squat, right? Back easer. So I like this kind of work where I sit on the bolster, my back kind of gets a little ease, but now I'm gonna scoot my tailbone right to the edge and I keep a back bend, right? As I carefully lower back. Oh, blanket's too far in. Okay. If the blanket's under your shoulders, no good. You gotta change. You do need a gap here between the neck, right? And the shoulders on ground, right? You want this to be kind of trying to figure its life out, okay? As time goes on, right, that area, this back stuff is great. I don't want this blanket under my shoulders. I want to try to get this area to lengthen. So as I get my belt on, I'm gonna scoop it up with my feet and it's all wrapped together and twisted. So here we go. All right, so loosen it up. If your belt is connected, if it happens to be connected right now, maybe yours isn't, you got to snap it together, but make a loop so that when you push your feet out, it's really a reasonable extension. If you're really shaky, that happens all the time, right? I don't go too far. It's not worth it. It's not going to help you out if it's so shaky. And another thing to do if you have the shakes with this one, you just hold the belt and create that firm balance at the back of the legs, that circulation into the hip. I like actually loosening it up so much that I can, sometimes I'll just bring the hands together like this. This feels kind of interesting. Plenty of you don't hold the belt, just let the legs stretch into wide stance. Leg float is what I call this one. So reverse that flow back towards the lower back, up the spine to the lungs, upper back. Okay, feel that pressure into the lungs and breathe. You know, when you feel the feet pushing out, okay, noticing if there's any leg stretch. I mean, there's the movement in the inner leg. There might be a different type of leg stretch when you have both of them working in tandem, right? Like so. So when we bend the knees, you're gonna reach up to the belt, slide now the feet together, and then keep a loop and bring the palms together so the thumbs are touching the webbing of the index and the thumb. That thenar space has a belt on it. And you'll lower the left leg down and stretch the arms back overhead. Just try something different. It's always good to shift it up here. Okay, so feeling when the arms stretch back, when the hamstring is awake. Hamstring, wake up. Okay. Let the left leg relax, or you could take a little bit more, reach through the heel. If you're so lucky that the wall is right there, it's sort of nice when it's something you can push into. I'm not quite at the wall, so it doesn't do exactly what I need, but you can always push down, move a little closer to the wall. And then just keep the arms back. See if you can keep that load in the arms. Take the leg up and then switch it. Try to keep that same range of motion in the arms. That'll give you some insight into your hamstring differences, like you were caring about that today. I mean, you've lived in your body for a while. What's the hamstring difference? Okay. So with the right leg down, now I can feel a little different slack in my sacrum. Maybe this awareness is not going to get me anywhere, but I can work with the arm energy right now, pulling back, which I really like, that hand. So my heel of my hand is not pressing now, it's starting to move apart, so I have to go back to heel of the hand pressing. They got a little tired. Those hand heels get tired sometimes. Okay, now, as you slide that right foot back, okay, let's go ahead and bring the hands to stretch up to hold that left leg, and the right leg releases. Just cross the left leg over to the right. We're going to kind of wake it up before we do our kind of deepening hip crossover. Okay, take a few moments. Feel that flush through the hip, that left outer band. So I try to let the left rear just lift up. I don't try to keep anything down on the sacrum. No, no, no. I roll. And then when I bend the left knee, the knee points to the right side. And then when I come back center, scoop up the right foot into the belt, cross over so left hand takes over. Bottom leg needs to be free to bend. Cross the leg to the left. Feel the right buttock lift, stretch across into the hip. It might feel different from one hip to the next. It wasn't just a hamstring thing, it's a hip thing too. Okay, now when the motion to come into the crossover happens, we're going to go without the bolster under our pelvis. That's going to be the difference. So kind of notice right now, for all it's worth, what this bolster does to kind of lift your hips up and help you go into that twist, right? It does help you, gives you a little gain, right? Kind of helps with the end range, right? So as we bend the right knee, we just carefully slide the left foot in, slip the belt off your foot, okay? Now, knees in. I like to push my knees in towards my chest using the bolster to kind of help me push back. Like if you were doing a back somersault, you would use something probably to help you get that motion. So we're not going to do somersaults here, but you're going to push the bolster down, push, 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 and then I want you to take your bolster, kick it to that left, or so actually, wait, don't kick your bolster yet. Get your ball. Okay, this is the best. You got to do this. Ball under left rear or right rear, it doesn't matter, and massage the glute. Okay, I like the bolster under my feet for this because it gives me a little better pressure into the ball when my feet are up. What's even better is if you have your feet at a wall or up on a chair and do the rolling. So if you like doing this kind of massage work on your glutes, I would recommend, probably legs at the wall is a good pose to do more often than other ones, right? For your immune system, right? Your lymph drain. So you could do a little rolling and then you could put the legs up, that kind of thing. Okay, that'd be a good sequence. Simple, simple. So why is it good, right? This is turnover in the tissues, a good little scrub, right, on that dermal, that skin, the skin and the surface muscles is what we're focusing on right now. So try to go across. So you got to move your hips, and then we're going to go to the other side. So move the ball to the right or left, or your other left, and then roll. Feel where there's pressure and movement, right? Do they glide together, right? Sometimes when I have movement, I don't feel like I'm going into pressure with it. So I really want to find what is massage, right? That's both of those are the same. You have to find that right glide into the glute here, the glute free. Okay, the foot could lift, the feet could be down on a bolster. It's up to you. Okay, now move the ball to the left hip, kick the bolster to the right side of your mat. See, that was worth doing. And then you're going to cross the leg over to the right. I've seen some people set up their props here where they'll put like a full warm blanket under them in these final few poses, so it's really cozy. So if you want to do that, that's great. Right? So make it a comfortable time. So you can have a sandbag on the outer right. For left hip, your arm opens, your head rolls to the left. Okay, but feeling where there's elongation, there's this rib motion, there's an arch. There's kind of all things in this one. Yeah, if you're a little cool. I am going to turn my heat up a little bit. And it's off. I can really tell. Okay. All right, so with the crossover, what happens, right, for your chest muscles? You know, the rib barrel is somewhat obvious, but it is connected to the chest. So having that flexibility, let's say you have some tricky times with your shoulders. You know, it's not like the chest stretch is going to fix something in a joint necessarily, right? It might not do anything if it's arthritic. So, but you still want to work with openness in the chest for the lung circulation, the respiratory muscles. There's just a lot to take care of in a body. So we kind of scratch the surface a little bit in here, I hope. So keeping the openness, the hopenness, and breathe. You know, moving the ball first. Get as much time as you can with that hip soak. Okay, now shift the sand to the waist. Feet walk in. Tailbone center. I like to be careful in my core and my back, not to do anything too much motion in between the two sides because it's a twist. So we want to keep the sacrum comfortable here. So I move the bolster and then I cross the right leg over. So I like to place the ball first at the kind of at the tailbone, right? That's where I prefer. And then I add sand. I'm sure some people do the opposite, but I first want to kind of keep that that trend towards motion around the hip contour, and then with the sand on the side, and my shoulder tries to roll back. So the bottom leg has got to bend. Otherwise, it's hard to go all the way up the spine and then open out through the ribs. And you can try a straight left leg if you want to, but curves are good, right? You want all the curve and contour you can get. Really important. Let your head roll to the right. And then maybe there's a zone that you can settle that's kind of gripping. That it could be your hip is tightening. Just see if you can let the stretch ease up the tension. If anything, give you a boost of helpful circulation, right? Not just muscular, but the support in the, you know, the lymphatic pump. That's the big part of this, right? For yoga. You do other things for other, you know, the vascular system and so forth. All of this helps that too, but not as much as that lymph. Right? The heart takes care of moving the blood through. Right? It's the pump, but As far as the lymph, right, you've got to do these different stretches, upside down twists, or get massage, one or the other, or all. So the ball rolling is helpful for that. Now taking a moment here where you just connect the dots, hip is stretching, lower back is arching. Okay, now maybe you move the sand and the ball, you decide, okay? I like on this one, move the ball first, do the sand pressure, and then sand. All right, so now with care, right, in consideration of my back, I'm gonna bring my knees to the side, roll, and then slide my blanket, and probably all my blankets are gonna go towards the wall, just so you have some warmth, right? So, and not only warmth, but something that's touching on you that gives you a little weight, right? That's another part of it. So even if you're in a space that's pretty warm, you know, still having that something touching on you is key. Blankets are great for that. So I'm gonna take my bolster and place it right up against the base of the wall. If getting upside down has been tricky for you, or just that you feel a little not uncertain today, you can always just have a blanket folded like this against the wall and come up upside down on that. You could use two blankets. Some people just find the bolster just so awkward. So using one or two blankets or a bolster, and then you got to get to the edge of the bolster. You got to go onto the edge so it's awkward, and then you can roll up and still feel awkward. Okay, so I try to center on the bolster. It's not always perfect, right? So I'm a little distant from the wall. I can try to work my way towards it, but I'm going to be okay with that. Kind of visualize like you're a caterpillar, like you could kind of curl up and then lengthen down. And then you take a sanded bag. Okay, if you've got sand interest on this one, use it. If not, you don't have to. I mean, there is a world where it's kind of nice to have sand free with legs up the wall, just so the feet don't have any pressure. But sometimes it feels good to intensify that flow back towards the leg pit, the groins. That's a good one. Even though you might not viscerally feel that, it's happening, right? You can kind of trust in the science of it. So gravity helps the lymph drain to the collarbones, right? And from that area, then it moves down via the blood right into the organs, right, of elimination. So it's a good one. So you can have more sand here, a blankie. If you have an eye pillow, you can place it over your eyes. And mine is protecting the base of the door so the air doesn't flow in. I gather things here. Keep it warmer. Arms go down by the sides. Using your natural eye pillows, relax your eyes. Find what's comfortable for you with your arms. It does not have to be with them stretching besides you. It could be them resting on you, kind of under your blanket. The important part is the reverse flow to the heart and the brain. That's what's important here. So giving yourself enough time and just feeling the circulation shift. If it's ever too much in the back, what do? Well, you could remove your sand, you could bend your knees more. There's all kinds of things you can do to ease the back on this one. If I bend my knees a little bit, kind of feel the back of the pelvis centered. And then the belly gently moves with the breath. Take a slow, deep breath in through the nose. Just feel that connection down into the lower parts of the ribs. Then the belly lifts. And on the out breath, belly relaxes. But it is a sweeping circulation back to the heart. Thus, it slows down. Blood pressure lowers. So giving the body a little time for the inner environment to kind of celebrate this good circulation event. That's kind of the key that I try to support you in. Just feeling that circulation shift, or maybe it's just comfortable. That's it. That's all you feel is, a little more calm. Now, when I shift my sand, I got to move my feet away from the wall, and then I bend through the legs. And I like to take the time so my back gets kind of a nice quench of sensation from the sand, right? So sometimes it feels good if I can reach up and get my sand, place it on the shins. I'm ultra cautious of knees, so I tend to think sand on the back of the legs is better because I don't have any joint issues here on the hamstrings, right? It's here below the knee that could cause too much force for some people. But there is plenty that loves the sandy shin. Just love that one. So here I'm getting pressure. My teacher does teach this one where we got sand here, we got a blanket roll at the belly to compress into the organs and keep that little squeeze for a few breaths. You don't have to spend energy toughing it away with the breath, just exist is good, because energizing the breath could be like a fight you can't win on this one because of the pressure. Okay, now as we move any sand away, kind of huddle into the legs, roll side to side, maybe a little left to right before you go to one side and come up. And we roll. And we come up. Take a seat, take a mini moment here where the balance is with the hips. Just like we started, maybe shrug your shoulders, maybe tip your head. After all this time in class, it might feel like you have a little bit more heat inside, a little better awareness, and maybe too much awareness sometimes. But hands meet to your heart center. That complete practice. Let's breathe in awareness, breathe in circulation and wellness to yourself and all to others. Deep breath and exhale, bowing into that space behind your heart in gratitude.